Welcome back to Sunday Agenda. The Labor Party's national conference starts in Sydney on Thursday, and with the Rudd government riding high in the opinion polls, you'd think this one will be a celebration for the true believers. But you'd be wrong. Within the party, there's a groundswell of disquiet because of the economy. It's all about jobs. Unions believe there's more to be done to protect Australian workers, and they'll be demanding action at the conference. And joining me here in the studio is Paul Howes, National Secretary of the Australian Workers' Union. Paul Howes, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Helen.
Now, is the Rudd Labor government failing workers?
Not at all. I mean, the Rudd Labor government's on the right track, but more can be done. Today we've seen polling release which shows that 90% of Australians think that the federal government should take a strongly interventionist approach into the manufacturing sector. 85% of Australians think that when it comes to the issue of procurement, that if a locally sourced good costs us slightly more than a foreignly sourced good, that they should source a local good in procurement. And what we're doing is working with the government in a cooperative manner to find out new ways to keep our vital manufacturing industry alive, to stop the rot with the 76,000 jobs we've lost over the last 12 months, and to ensure that Australian industry is put first.
Well, now things must be pretty crook for the traditional foes like the left-wing Metalworkers Union and the vehemently right-wing AWU to join forces. Why are you joining together?
Well, in the last 12 months, we've lost 76,000 jobs in the manufacturing sector, and that's why the AWU and the AMWU are joining forces, combining the strength of our 250,000 members to ensure that we put the interests of our members first, above narrow political concerns and above the concerns of factional interests within the Labor Party. I'm more interested in saving the jobs of our 250,000 members than I am in the internal politics of the Labor Party.
Are you essentially asking for preferential treatment for manufacturing?
No. I mean, what we're doing is ensuring that the manufacturing sector, which has been vibrant, which has been profitable, which has been strong over the last 10 years, gets a helping hand during the global downturn. It's the same thing we did with the banking sector last year. I mean, we need to ensure that our manufacturing industry is alive when the good times come back, so it can take advantage of our natural resources, and we don't just export our natural resources, but we actually value add and create employment on the eastern seaboard and not just the western seaboard.
All right, well, you want to create priority sourcing, as you said, of Australian goods. Now, even if they're not price competitive, why should somebody source Australian goods?
Because if we're creating stimulus packages to create employment, and if that's the purpose of stimulus packages, we shouldn't just create a boom in the construction sector. We should create a boom in the manufacturing sector as well. And if we're going to spend billions of dollars on infrastructure projects, it doesn't make sense just to simply have those billions of dollars being spent on propping up Indian steelmakers and Chinese steelmakers. We should be using that to ensure that our steel sector, which is profitable, which is productive, but is suffering from the global credit crunch, can survive during this downturn period and will be in a good position when the credit crunch is resolved.
All right, now one of the examples I think your union gave was the Carlton Football Club. Now, if they use Chinese steel, what's wrong with that? It must have been a better price than the Australian steel.
Well, no, what we've had at Princes Park and with the Carlton Football Club is that we're not even an invitation going out to the Australian steel sector to bid for that work. You know, too often we have a knee-jerk reaction by contractors and users of government money just to go for the cheapest option. You know, I was speaking with one of our steel companies recently who told me out of the entire education revolution funding, they've only received $77,000 in orders for steel. Now, billions of dollars being spent. One Steel is our second largest steel manufacturer in Australia, has only received $77,000 worth of orders.
So why is that?
Well, because we have a situation where over the last 10 years we haven't had strong procurement policies put in place where companies are required to look at sourcing local options. You have a situation where there is massive dumping of cheap government subsidised steel coming from India and China, and where there is unusual relationships between a lot of building contractors and foreign building product manufacturers.
So are you asking for more protection, say, of our steel industry?
Well, what we're looking for is a stimulus for our steel industry, providing our steel industry with a boost. And what I'm interested in...
But we've had two giant stimulus packages, and the government is now talking, Mr Rudd is talking in his essay this weekend about times are going to get tougher. They have to wean us off the stimulus checks.
Well, absolutely times are going to get tougher, but we can do a lot to ensure that it's not so tough. I mean, when you've got Treasury forecasting a rise in unemployment to 8.5% next year, This provides us with the opportunity to change the way the government procurement policies have worked in the past. I'm not talking about protection, I'm not talking about breaking World Trade Organisation obligations or free trade agreement obligations, but we're looking at boxing a bit smarter, getting best bang for our buck, and how we can change the way that we do business in this country to reflect the fact that the economy has changed, and that if we want Australia to be a viable, profitable place and a good place to live and work, then we need to change the way that we do commerce in this country.
You obviously want to get a slice of the big infrastructure projects that are coming down the track. Why do you think you won't be able to get some of that for Australian manufacturing?
I think we will get it, because what we are arguing for is right. It makes sense. I haven't heard...
But you're actually asking for the government to intervene and make sure you get it, or are you saying you can get it just on normal competitive grounds? No,
because what we're seeing, the crisis that affects the Australian manufacturing sector is affecting manufacturing sectors across the world. Now, some sectors where there is strong government subsidies provided to manufacturing industries, like in China and like in India, are addressing their downturn in their economy by exporting more as possible, and in fact exporting steel sometimes at less than the price of the iron ore that would have been used to make the steel in the first place. And that's why we need to change our procurement policies in this country to recognise that that's going on, to toughen our foreign ownership restriction laws, to toughen our anti-dumping measures, to actually preserve free trade rather than ensure that this unequal balance it continues.
Do you want another stimulus package?
Well, I think the government should be looking at how much we can invest into different parts of our economy. Obviously, there is a lot of debt now, and I'm sure that that's weighing heavily on the Treasurer and the Prime Minister's mind. But what I'm more interested in at the moment is how we can actually use what we've got at the moment to promote these sectors and to promote rural and regional employment in particular. All
right, well, we think that there will not be any embarrassments at the ALP National Conference. Are you saying that you won't embarrass the government, that you want this all done behind closed doors to be fixed up by Thursday?
Well, at conference I'll be speaking very loudly, and I'm sure other unions will be speaking very loudly about the issues that matter. But at the end of the day, we're all part of the Labor family. There is much to celebrate, and it is important to recognise the fact that Australia would be in a far worse position now if we continued the open slather policies of the previous government. Kevin Rudd and the Treasurer have much to be congratulated for what they've done to protect Australian jobs in the meantime. I'm sure conference will be an exciting week for the party to come together and plan out the next 18 months in particular. But obviously these are tough times, and we'll be ensuring that my members' job security is put as our #1 priority.
All right, now you mentioned you're accepting Treasury's estimates, which are probably out of date now, according to Access Economics, which is saying that unemployment actually won't get over 8% and that it will peak at 7.5%. Do you accept that?
Well, I'm not an economist, but I can tell you what, 8.5% is a bad result. 7.5% is a bad result. 76,000 jobs lost in the last 12 months in the manufacturing sector is a bad result. And it demonstrates the need, no matter what the exact result is, to work as quickly as possible, as fast as possible, to save jobs in our country.
Are you expecting more jobs to go in your sector?
Absolutely. I'm seeing it on a daily basis. I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about green shoots, but I haven't seen them yet. All I'm seeing is an increasing in rates of redundancies in my industries by 11% a month. And that concerns me, and that's why I'm so focused and so giving so much priority to saving jobs in this country.
Paul Howes, thanks very much for joining us. We'll leave it there.
Thanks, Helen.
And that's all we have time for this morning. Remember, you can email us with your views at sundayagenda@skynews.com.au. And if there's something you missed or want to see again, you can listen to our Sunday Agenda whenever you like by downloading the show from our website. Just go to the podcasting link. I'm Helen Dalley. Thanks for watching Sunday Agenda. See you next week.